the Filipinos are still one of the least traveled people in the world. But having said that, the Philippines actually is one of the fastest growing markets in the world. We are registering on an average 10% growth in traffic every year. No? And for a period of 10 years, from 2005 to 2015, domestic traffic in the Philippines tripled. What are the reasons for this phenomenal growth of traffic in the Philippines? Well, number one is policy, what we call the progressive liberalization of the aviation industry in the Philippines. Years ago, you buy a ticket, all in, the fares are fixed. There are no fare differentiation except the business and the first class cabin. And you are not able to fill the plane. The average load factor may be 50%. So you can just imagine, if you have a plane of 200 seats, 100 people would bear the entire cost of operating the plane. So the result is very high fares. So in the old days, air travel is for the elite. How many of you guys have traveled abroad? Raise your hands. Almost everybody. No? Air travel in my time was just a figment of my imagination. But because of the liberalization that is sweeping the world, air travel has been democratized. And the reason is an open market, because in the old days, if I am operating route A to B, I can say that, oh, you're applying for this route. I am operating this adequately, so you cannot enter the market. No. So in other words, entry and exit into the market during those times is not free. No. When the market is not open, the result is no competition. When there is no competition, prices are high, services are inefficient. But when the government ushered in liberalization, then competition heightened. And apart from an open market, we also adopted an open pricing regime. So we liberalized the fares in the aviation industry. And remember that real competition in the aviation industry lies in pricing. You consider the buses and the jeepneys. There's no competition in the buses and in the jeepneys because there is no competition on prices. The prices are fixed. When you fix prices, there's hardly any competition. But when we deregulated and liberalized airfares, competition became very vibrant. This is the second factor, no? The emergence of the low-cost model. Because the low-cost airlines, cornerstone of that business model would be cheaper fares. So they have strategies like quick turnaround of aircraft. The quicker you turn around, the more time that you will be able to utilize your aircraft. And then the unbundling of fares. No? Unbundling is simply the splitting of the components of the cost of the fare. For example, in the old days, you pay a fixed fare, all-inclusive. Nowadays, this is the value of the seat alone. If you can buy the seat, but you cannot pay for food, you cannot pay for additional luggage, then you can still fly because you can afford the seat. This unbundling of fares enables the airlines to differentiate between fare classes. And then, coupled with a revenue management system, because in the old days, the airline cannot keep track of what is happening on the inventory in real time. But with the advent of the computer reservation system, the airline is able to keep track of what is happening with their inventory in real time. And so they can now predict, oh, the market is very slow, the seats are not selling. And so what the airlines did, for example, this is a plane, assuming this is 160 seats. The airline will segment this into 16 buckets. No? Each bucket would contain about 10 seats. And then, I will now differentiate the seats into different fare levels. The cheapest fares would be the more restricted because the differentiation is based on restrictions like revocability, refundability, or even I cannot fly on a weekend because it's more expensive. I will fly on a Tuesday because it's the cheapest. Or I can only fly in the wee hours of the morning because the fares are cheaper. So the cheapest fares are in the first bucket. And of course, the market will gravitate to the first bucket. So the first bucket will be sold out ahead of the rest of the buckets and so on. No? Because if the first bucket is sold out, then the people will now buy the second bucket. But if the airline is able to monitor that the cheap buckets are selling earlier than we predict. So what they will do is now to put seats from the lower buckets into the higher buckets because the sale is very quick. And vice versa, if the cheap fares are not selling, they will end up flying with empty seats. So what are they going to do? They will bring some of the seats from the expensive buckets into the cheaper buckets. So you may be sitting in an aircraft, you paid 500 pesos while your seatmate paid 2,000 pesos. And the question is that fair? Quite a difficult question, but to my mind, it evens out because maybe today I'm a leisure traveler. A leisure traveler is willing to wait, willing to look for the cheapest fares, is willing to adjust his schedule. I buy a ticket that will be flown 6 months from now. It's very cheap. That's a leisure traveler. So today, maybe I'm a leisure traveler, so I saved a lot of money, but maybe next month, my relative is sick. I am in a rush, I have to fly tomorrow. Do you expect the airlines to sell you the cheapest fare if you are going to fly tomorrow? If you are going to fly tomorrow, your seat will be expensive because you are flying on demand. You are flying on call. And it's more difficult for the airlines to provide you that kind of seat because the cheaper seats are easier to provide because you pay in advance, the airline gets your money, and they are assured of a certain level of revenue early on. They generate revenue early on. But with regard to the expensive seats, the airline would reserve, say, 10 seats on the last day in the hope that there would be last-minute travelers. But if the 10 seats are not sold, then they lose the 10 seats. So in other words, it's more expensive to provide those seats which are available on call. I want you to have an understanding of fare differentiation, like this is cheap because this is not revocable, not refundable, you cannot fly it on a weekend. Because of these developments, policy of liberalization, unbundling of fares, the emergence of the low-cost carriers, and what else? A revenue management system. The confluence of all of these elements is driving the market, making the Philippines one of the fastest growing aviation markets in the world. And it makes us proud. You know why? It's not only about trade, it's not only about investments. There is a social benefit to it. I'm very happy when I see Filipinos abroad, not as waiters, not as, of course it's honorable to work abroad, but I'm so proud to see Filipinos as tourists. Everywhere you go, you find Filipinos as tourists. The rate of Filipinos traveling to other countries is expanding. And what is the social benefit? You look at Facebook, so many pictures of young people like you posing in the good sites abroad, in the monuments, and it makes you feel good, you know. When you travel, they say that traveling is like reading a book. And when you do not travel, you only read one page of the book. Traveling, you observe the cultures of other people, it enriches you, it gives you a sense of accomplishment. And we should be happy that Filipinos are now traveling. But the more travel, the more restrictions, the more low-cost fares, the more first-time travelers who are not aware or not familiar with the nuances of air travel, the more problems. And so the economic regulation of the CAB number 9, called the Air Passenger Bill of Rights. And I will just maybe make mention of the 3 pillars of this Air Passenger Bill of Rights, designed to promote the welfare and protect the rights and convenience of the passengers. Number 1 would be right to information, full disclosure of the terms and conditions, the restrictions, the conditions attached to the fares. The advertisement should be not misleading. There should be full disclosure of the total fare. There should be right to information about the status of the flights in case of cancellation and delays. The second would be right to the value of the ticket purchase. Why right to the value? This has a special significance in today's era because of the differentiation in the fares. When we say right to the value of the ticket purchase, we're actually referring to the right to the value of the contracted service. Because if you can afford to only buy the seat, you cannot afford to pay for the plane, the food, you cannot afford to pay for additional luggage. You cannot say that, I did not get my money's worth. Because that is the service that you contracted. So, right to the full value of the service contracted. For example, your ticket is non-revocable and non-refundable. And then you appear in the check-in counter. And then the guard says, okay, you're late. There's a queue here, but you're late, you cannot be processed for check-in. And then you say, how can that happen? I've been here 1 hour ago. And I cannot be denied because if you deny me, my ticket is non-refundable and non-revocable. That is why the Air Passenger Bill of Rights has a provision that says that if you are in the queue in a certain cordoned area 1 hour before the close of the check-in period, you cannot be denied boarding. So that's an example of the second pillar of the Air Passenger Bill of Rights, the right to the full value of the ticket purchase. And the third pillar would be the right to compensation in case of flight delays and cancellations, right to amenities, right to hotel accommodation, when appropriate, not in all cases. And it's been a pleasure to visit UST again. Anyway, I'm happy to be back. So thank you very much. I hope you will learn from this briefing.